Hi everybody, I'm going to do another follow-up video on why I'm a pantheist part 2, because in there I did mention working with archetypes, the archetypal energies of multiple gods and goddesses to start some shadow work. But I do know that one of the biggest mysteries to some people is shadow work, what it is, what it's not, how to start it, how to know you're in it, and just in general it can be kind of confusing. People always talk about it. Some people are some people really do understand the concepts of shadow work, and then there's some people that really just don't understand or don't quite get it. So I thought I'd try to work a little bit with trying to explain it. I may not be able to explain it any better than anybody else out there, but I thought I'd try a little bit, since this is the time of the year that we start going and turning into shadow work for a lot of reasons. And I wanted to kind of talk about that too. First of all, what is shadow? Well, Carl Jung, the psychiatrist and psychologist, who also again was a big believer in astrology and working through people's charts, as well as the traditional methods in psychiatry to help people with their issues. He was the one who put together a system of images that gave particular thought forms to. A lot of dream work will be, the symbolism in dream work will also be very Carl Jung in nature when you start deciphering. He was the one who did a lot of work in that field and is still considered the epitome of analysis on that kind of things. The shadow, according to Carl Jung, is the parts of ourselves that we may try to hide or deny, and it can be said that they consist of energy patterns. And these energy patterns are known as selves or subpersonalities. And that we have actually worked to disown in our life somewhere along the line, generally in childhood. And we've pushed down these aspects of ourselves into our subconscious in the childhood point as a way of a coping strategy to survive, or as we were developing, by influences of a lot of times outward influences on us, but also sometimes it's also the misperception of a child to a situation. So not all shadow work requires the fact that it was because some trauma was done to you, or some wrong was done to you, or your parents didn't love you, or it doesn't have to be that dramatic, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have an effect on your psyche. And because these things lay dormant in your subconscious, and the subconscious stuffs these pieces down, you don't recognize them, and they start popping up as you are dealing with people, or you are interacting in life situations, and they will start rearing their, I don't want to say ugly head, because that's part of the problem, is that we have decided and we have judged these parts, but generally through the eyes of a child, not the eyes of an adult, as bad, evil, ugly, undesirous behaviors. in pieces of ourselves. And because of that, we have a fear of going back and retrieving these, even though most of the time we don't even remember that we put these things away from us. So shadow work, what is shadow work? Shadow work is the work of integrating and coming to know and accept all parts of yourself, especially those parts that we've attempted to hide and run from. Shadow work is also known to help you find treasures inside yourself, gifts that were also repressed from certain feelings or other emotions that we might have been repressing, which held back other aspects of ourselves that were actually golden gems hiding in the dark. And that way we try to make that which has been operating in our unconscious level into the conscious level. A lot of times we are completely unaware of these aspects, but they're running a background program like a computer does, a background program on us, and it affects actually every interaction that we can have out there in the world, whether it be with other people or animals or even our interaction in group settings or situations. This is a very intuitive work that we do, and it's one that asks you to follow your own soul's call and inward response. Now, how would you know if you needed to do shadow work? If there's some questions to kind of look at in your life, I would keep a little notebook in my purse, or if you're a guy, somewhere that you can jot something down with quickly when certain interactions in your life happened. If you are out there in the real world and you run across a certain type of person and they make you angry, nobody's actually done anything to you, but you are indignant to them at what they've done, how they did something, what you saw, or some interaction that you were a part of, and you go off on them, or you just internally start judging them or getting angry with them, combative, or treat them in a way that would be considered of a negative type interaction. When you do that, a lot of times what the universe is showing you, what you're picking up on that person that you're running into conflict with for whatever reason it is, when they bring up real negative emotions in you, especially when they really haven't done anything to you personally, but yet you're taking it personal for some reason, that would be a trigger, and you need to look within yourself about what is it in that person that is creating that inside you. Because that is the universe's way of showing you sometimes the shadow work that you need to work on in yourself. There's something about that person that is pulling something up in the from the subconscious realm that you may be totally oblivious to, that you're reacting to. That would be something to start contemplating, meditating on, and trying to figure out why. In the why, you can go back into and sometimes find the answers to other issues in your life. We all do it. It's not like that you're even a bad person if you do these things. It's just that it is a way of releasing it. Releasing the pent-up anger towards other people when you see them. Maybe you think they're getting away with something, or maybe you think that how dare they act this way, or whatever it is. It doesn't, it's going to be personal to you. It's going to be something that needs to be worked through in your own life. That's one way of trying to figure out if you need to do shadow work. Another way to know if you need to do shadow work, and I'll use me as an example. I am overweight, and I eat out of emotion or stress, which is a really big factor, especially in women's lives, although it is not confined to just women, although women tend to do it more as their main outlet of coping. You have to look deep as to what those emotional triggers are that send you into the bad habits that keep the weight on you. Maybe it's not an eating issue at all. Maybe it can be a stuffing of emotion. It can be eating out of stress. And most people confuse stress eating with, well, I don't eat when I'm stressed. I don't eat when I'm stressed either. I eat right after the stress starts to subside, and that is still a response to stress, and it is considered stress eating. Stress eating very seldom happens at the point that you are in the immediate stressful situation. It happens after you're trying to come off of that stressed situation, because it's a fight or flight syndrome of the adrenal glands. So what is it that is triggering the stress? Why are you having such a negative response to whatever it is that caused the stress? What is it that's causing the bad emotion? If it's the emotional eating versus the stress eating, what is that? All of these are parts of shadow work. It is why we do certain behaviors in response to certain situations that we know are bad for us, and that we sometimes feel like we have a lack of willpower to fight against. So that would be a good indication that you had shadow work to do. You also can look at shadow work as a way of even just using the I'm overweight. Okay, the why am I overweight? Is it that I am using my weight to protect me from the world? Is it that I don't believe that anybody will love me for being me, and I want them to prove that they'll love me for being me, so I keep the weight on? Is it, why do I self-sabotage? Would be another question for shadow work. Why do I consistently attract certain types of people into my life that cause me grief of whatever nature? Do I feel like a perpetual victim? Would be another form of shadow work. If you're feeling like a victim, then you need to do some inner work to try to find out why you are not strong, why you can't set boundaries, if there's a boundary issue in your life. Basically, shadow work is anything that you see as a problem in your life that you keep going over and over and over again, And you're going to repeat these patterns until you do address it. And it's the shadow work that helps you to address it. So when people say about the shadow work, that's really the kind of thing that they're referring to. Your shadow work today will be different than my shadow work tomorrow, will be different from your shadow work tomorrow. Whatever it is that tends to be the problem that's coming up right there at the surface right now is usually the one that needs the attention. But as you address one issue of shadow work, you may find that it's a deeper issue, and it's a deeper issue, and then it is a deeper issue again. So as you go into these different aspects of your personality and the patterns that you play out that are negative and destructive to you, and a sign of not self-nurturing and not self-loving yourself, then you go into it and you realize that it is like the peeling of an onion, or it is the ever unfolding lotus blossom. And that you have to go through layer after layer after layer, because it's very seldom that the core of the issue is so close to the surface that you can do quick shadow work. Quick shadow work is probably not shadow work. It may be the first step, but it is never an end point, because these are the issues, the core issues that run deeper in you than something that I've cut myself and now I need it to heal. I put a Band-Aid on and some medicine and now it's starting to heal and I'm already good. That's a superficial problem. And yes, those problems need to be dealt with too. But shadow work is going to probably be a little more intensive, a little more difficult to encounter. You have to be really brutally honest with yourself, and it generally comes with some tears. It's often referred to as the dark night of the soul, the closer that you get to the core issue. And if you've not ever had a few nights of those dark nights of the soul, you haven't done your shadow work yet. Because there's going to be some overwhelming things going on in there. And as we identify them, we can release them. And doing shadow work is, you can do many methods to do shadow work. You can figure out these questions that, these situations that come up, or if you have a particular problem in your life that you know is something that you keep doing to yourself as self-sabotage, then you start asking yourself questions. Now you can work this in several different ways as well. And you can be as creative as, there are probably as many ways to do shadow work as there are individuals, because we're all different and we all have to tend to our psyches in different ways. But a couple of prime examples of how you can use things, tools to do shadow work with. One is our gods or goddesses that you choose to work with. Generally a god and goddess that pick you, or you've picked them, there is something that is compatible to something that's running through your life. And just the study of those god and goddesses and their stories, their archetypes, their dramas that unfold with them, their issues of sacrifice, their issues of abandonment, their issues of descent, that means the descent into the underworld, and then their rebirth, coming back out. Whatever the archetypal theme in their drama is tending to probably point you to the way of how you delve into your shadow work or your shadow side. Another way that you can do is to look to your inner child and do what they call is inner child work. Both of these ways can get you back to soul retrieval. the pieces of the parts of your soul that you have pushed aside, splintered off, and tucked away, and that would be sort of like the orphaned child in you that you have denied is a part of you. And it's like orphaning that part of yourself. So how do you heal that when you're working with a deity or an inner child? It is to retrieve those soul pieces that you've put apart from yourself and accept them, see them for what they are, and accept them and embrace them and learn to love them without judgment. As you do that, you release a lot of pent-up hostility towards it and a lot of the acting out of that child that was neglected within you. A lot of times our bad behaviors are that inner child acting out and screaming for attention, screaming for you to pay attention to them, to look at them, to love them, and to recognize that they are the child within yourself. So that's a little bit about how you can use certain methods, but there's many, many more methods. You can do shamanic drumming and get yourself into a trance-like state and learn to meet your power animal. And in your power animal can give you a lot of work into the dark side or the descent into the underworld. And when you do that, that is representing your inner psyche, and the things that you come up with in those meditations can also lead you to retrieving parts of your soul again as well. With your power animal walking beside you and teaching you certain things about the shadow side and the shadow nature of things. There are many, like I said, many techniques that you can do, and you just have to kind of find the one that works well with you. Tarot cards also can be used in shadow work. You can use oracle cards and stuff like that to work on the themes that keep coming up. There's lots of different ways and techniques. So what do you do when you get to the bottom of a particular line of shadow work? There are things that you can do to start to self-heal and to show yourself self-love and to be a little kinder and less judgmental on yourself. And when you do that, you start easing up and not being so judgmental on others, including your family members or complete strangers that you don't even know. Shadow work can help you heal your body through the illnesses and stuff like that. If you have a major illness running through your life, then that also could be your shadow trying to say, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. Where the illness lies in the body tends to be a way of showing you what kind of emotion was stuffed and placed there. There are, Louise Hay has done a lot of work in this kind of field about where every vertebra on the spine is linked to a particular emotion or idea of how you have hurt yourself or denied yourself. And as she put it, to give a great example, Louise Hay was raped when she was younger. So years later, as she was repressed all of that anger, emotion, and all of the other things that a violent crime like that puts to a psyche, especially a younger psyche. as she pushed and stuffed that down in her life, as she had to move on and grow and do other things with her life and not dwell on that, she probably thought she was coping with it quite well by being able to move on and stuff. But years later, she got cancer of the vagina. Now, that is to show you where she stuffed her emotions and where it was from. And that shows you just how related trauma or negative emotion, insults or injuries or devastating events in our lives are placed in our body, and they're stuck energy spots in ourselves. Each body part, each organ, each meridian in our systems are related to particular stuck emotions. So if you have a blockage in your kidney, I believe kidney is guilt. I believe kidneys are guilt if you have a kidney illness. If you have a lung issue, I believe that's fear. But the thing is, I have a book that I can reference, and so when I have a problem with a certain body part, I look to what it says in her book, because she's very good at, it's called How to Heal Yourself, or Heal the Body, I think, but it's Louise Hay, and she links everything. There's correspondences to every body part, so where there's an illness there, you can look to that, and there's some positive affirmations that you can use to start to release these stuck emotions, and a lot of times that helps you get over the illness itself. It is a form of shadow work in itself too, when you're medically taking on where the body is literally breaking down in certain parts because of what we've stuffed and where we've stuffed it in ourselves. These are just some of the ways that you can look to see if you need to do shadow work, and you can start to do shadow work. Like I said, there's many, many more things that you can accomplish in shadow work, and right now is the time of the year that we start turning in and doing more shadow work. Although you can do shadow work at any time, and whenever it actually rears its ugly head, you should be trying to address it at that point. No matter whether it's springtime or wintertime, it has really no relevance. You just need to start working on whatever it is that is showing itself. But right now, we are at a time of the year when we naturally start going into shadow work. It's very fitting that this is the time of the year that is called the dark time of the year. And it's also fitting that in the dark time of the year, everything is slowing down, everything is stopping to grow after the harvest, and the energies turn back down into the soil of Mother Earth until they start coming back through springtime and all of the fertility of that time of period. But there's another reason why the dark time of the year is the time we do a lot of shadow work. We slow down. Our lives are usually a lot faster paced in the summer, the spring, all of those years, all those times when the sun is shining and we've got lots to do. We're happier because we're doing more things socially, out and about, all of that. The winter time is more of a time where we stay home. The days get shorter, there's more dark than there is light, and we start turning inward because we have time to turn inward. When we're busy, we can deny we even have an issue. It is when we start slowing down and we're there with ourselves that these things start coming up. There's another reason as well. The sun is fixing to go into Virgo. And because the sun is going into Virgo, that the sun represents the self, and Virgo represents I analyze. So therefore the theme, and at this point of the time of year, is I analyze myself. You start going through the sun starts going through these different houses that now are more, as each astrological sign as it passes, is more and more into the deeper, darker aspects of the soul. And that's why this is a better time also to journey inward and journey down into the descent before we come back up again into the fiery optimism of Aries. So through Virgo all the way through Pisces, we're starting to do the introspections of ourselves as the sun moves through those zodiac signs. And wherever those zodiac signs are placed in your natal birth chart will mean what part of yourself that you're to analyze. For me, I have, when the house goes into Libra, I'm going to be turning into my health. Because even though Virgo rules the house of health, for me, it's not Virgo that does that. I'm going to start moving on into different work, and everybody is going to be unique in their work because the houses are going to be a little different, and who is in that house is a little different. And then these houses also have their traditional rulers that also influence that house as well. So when those aspects are hit by certain planetary energies and stuff too, it becomes another time for a different working of that house. We do have Saturn in Scorpio right now, and it's going to go move back into Sagittarius. And once it moves into Sagittarius, it'll be a little bit letting up. But right now, it is in the darker side of Scorpio. And it is about death and rebirth themes and stuff like that. Saturn is the planet of hard work, so being in Scorpio, it is a darker kind of energy. We also have it's also about sex and a few other aspects, and so maybe it's our sexual appetites that we need to be looking at. Maybe we need to work on certain aspects to do with how we present ourselves sexually out in the world, or like I said, it could just be all kinds of different, deeper, darker things. But Saturn means hard work, and it's in Scorpio, and that means it is the hard work of working on those issues that the Scorpion house brings up. Then you have Pluto, who rules Scorpio, and it's in Capricorn. It's in the actual house that Saturn rules. Capricorn is the house of hard work as well. And so there's Pluto, the Lord of the underworld, the deeper, darker side, the death and rebirth, the transformations. Those are, so the themes right now are going to be very heavily about our shadow work. And that's what actually brings this darker time of the year into more shadow work time. So I hope that kind of got y'all started into, for the ones of you who don't have quite an idea of how to start shadow work. It is kind of hard sometimes to get started when you're unfamiliar with really, if something's not really like slapping you in the face at the moment. It's sometimes hard to do shadow work. It's hard to just pick a theme and say, oh, okay, I'm going to work on this. I've never been able to do shadow work that way. Shadow work comes up because of issues that happened in my life. And it pretty much does slap me in the face. And once it does, there's no not working on it. You have to face it And you've got to start working on it. You may not solve it, you may not get all the way through it, but you got to start working on it. You've got to start seeing yourself and trying to purify yourself and make yourself better. It is the human alchemy that we're working on, and that is the work of the alchemist, and that is the work of what we do in shadow work. It is a form of human alchemy on ourselves so that we can become our own philosopher's stone. We are born into the lead part, and we are trying to become the gold, and that is the trial by fire of shadow work. So I hope that helps people out there that may be a little confused on how to start, and y'all have a blessed evening. Bye.